Okay, good morning everyone. So welcome to our first breakout session on exploring consumer trends and growth opportunities in the biotic space. So I'm excited to introduce our speaker, Anna Ackermann, the Vice President of Marketing and Nutrition Affairs from COMET. Anna has over a decade of experience working within the intersection of nutrition and business as a registered dietitian and a Manasal Low Food Amp certified RD. Anna uses her expertise in nutrition to direct commerce clinical trial strategy, educate consumers on Arabina's health claims, and tell its ingredient story. And before joining COMET, Anna worked at global market research and public relations firms, providing nutrition consulting for the leading food, beverage, and food service brands. The floor is all yours, Anna.
Thank you.
I know we have something showing up.
Great. I'm going to go around here, actually, if that's okay. Great. I want us to be interactive. If you guys have a question, please raise your hand. If it seems like I'm speaking Greek, stop me. I'll try to explain different things. I want this to be something everyone can get out of, so if you need to stop me at any time, I'm not offended. I will say, I don't really want to debate the science with anyone. Either you believe in the science or you don't. I'm not going to go there, but anything just in terms of any of the terms I'm using or any of the jargon I'm using, please stop me. Or if you have any questions. As you mentioned, I'm Anna Ackermann. I'm a registered dietitian. Real quick, this is the only time I'll talk about COMET or what we do, just so you know where I'm coming from and maybe any potential biases I could have. I tried really hard not to when I made this deck. I work for COMET. COMET, we're actually based here in Schaumburg, our BD Business Development Center. We're a technology-enabled ingredients company. Right now, our flagship product is Arabina, which we call nature's best dietary fiber perfected. I say we're a technology-enabled ingredients company because the reason why our ingredient is so special is actually because of the way we extract it from crop leftovers. We extract it super gently, so it keeps all that natural plant diversity and good fiber intact, versus other fibers you might have tried before use much more harsh manufacturing conditions and enzymatic processes. And when they do that, some of that natural plant diversity is lost. And greater plant diversity is greater microbiome benefits, which we can get into a little bit today too. So if you're interested in hearing more about Arabina, you have a booth here today, 1025 in the expo hall. That's the last time I'll talk about Arabina or COMET during this presentation. Great. So I'm going to talk through a couple different things today, just kind of to give everyone a good base of what's going on within the biotics industry in 2025 and looking ahead a bit to 2026. First, I'm just going to talk about some general consumer attention within biotics. Then I'm going to talk about what gut microbiome benefits are going beyond digestive health. Then I'm going to talk about prebiotics, that segment in particular, and how options are diversifying and where that market's going. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about postbiotics, which is the new kid on the block, and there's some really interesting emerging research around it. So how do we identify these trends? So at COMET, we do our own consumer research. The reason why is, even though we're a B2B ingredient company, our customers constantly ask us, why do you think customers are interested in prebiotics? Why are they interested in fiber? What's happening? How can we stay ahead of the curve, and how can you help us? So we just did a consumer insights survey with a third-party company where we just asked some general prebiotic fiber questions. We actually were able to trend some of the results versus the same study we did in 2019, which was pretty interesting. I'm not getting into it today, but protein interest is massive compared to 2019. I think it almost doubled in terms of interest in most of our metrics. I think fiber is not far behind though. We also look at Google search analytics so we can see what customers are searching for. You know, a couple of years ago, people were doing more basic questions like, what is a prebiotic? That was a really common search. Now, the search is getting a little bit more nuanced within prebiotics. Customers are asking, what's the best prebiotic? How is this prebiotic different than this prebiotic? What prebiotics are going to be gentle on my stomach? So it's really interesting just to look at that data. Social listening, we also have a tool where we can look at TikTok and Instagram and what people are talking about. What conversations are people having? What are they doing? Gut talk, if you're on TikTok, you probably know it's huge. It's resulting in our customers being more educated than ever. The amount that we're asked now, how many clinical trials do you have on your ingredient? Is this actually shown in an in vivo clinical study? Just those questions are so much more happening, and I think that really is because partly of social listening. Like, customers are becoming much more educated on the supplement industry in particular and what makes a good clinically studied ingredient versus maybe an ingredient that's lacking some of that scientific rigor when it's making claims. And then lastly, we use Intel. Intel's a market research agency. They have this great tool called Global New Product Database, where they track all the products coming out in the market. So this is a really great way to see how is the industry responding. What products are coming out with prebiotic claims? What kind of claims are prebiotics making? What probiotic products are coming out? Postbiotics, how many new products came out last year? So that's a really good tool to look at that. So kind of all four of these areas is how we get to our macro trends. So the first one is just, I want to talk a little bit about biotics and consumer attention. But before I do that, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with some basic definitions. So what type of biotic helps feed good gut bacteria? Probiotics, prebiotics, or postbiotics? Does anyone have an answer? Yes, exactly. So prebiotics help feed the good bacteria in your gut. Probiotics are microbes that you take that are living, that actually help have a conferred health benefit in the gut. So that would be an example of like what you find in yogurt. Lactobacillus is a really common one. And then prebiotics. Most commonly people think of dietary fibers like inulin, or chicory root is another way it's called. That's what you find in like a fiber 1 bar that has good gut health benefits. But there are emerging prebiotics that are in fiber, like phenolic compounds, that are other compounds that are shown that good biotic bugs in your gut can feed off of and use as energy. So they're really important for the gut as well. And then the last category, which I'm going to get into a bit more later in the presentation, is postbiotics. And postbiotics are microbes that are killed or made inactive, but even though they're inactive, they still have some type of good health benefit. In postbiotics, this category really came from scientists doing research on different things and realizing like, hey, this lactobacillus strand is technically dead, we heated it before we put it in this product, but there's still some health benefits there. What's going on? So I'll get more into that later, but that's just the general definition of what a postbiotic is. Great. So we asked customers, what are health benefits you're looking for in functional products? And interestingly, this kind of surprised us, energy was one of the top things people were really looking for. Gut health was really close behind, and then muscle, bone, joints, weight loss. And then cognitive health, you can see some of these other newer categories. What I found really interesting about this was in 2019, we asked the same question, and weight loss topped the list, like completely. And that's pretty much historically always been the trend for the supplement industry in particular, that even though customers talk about all these other benefits, it's really weight loss and weight management is one of the benefits they're most seeking. So I just thought this was really interesting. Just I'll get a little more energy. And then this is a question we actually Intel asked, we did not ask from one of their reports. And it was about, they asked the question, first off, are you familiar with the benefits of fiber, which is in orange, benefits of prebiotics, probiotics, postbiotics. And the benefits of fiber, you'll see most consumers are familiar with. Prebiotics and probiotics and prebiotics have 2 far behind. Postbiotics, more than half, which I think is pretty interesting. So in terms of interest, you'll see some of these newer categories, prebiotics and postbiotics. There's a real interest in these topics. So consumers in gut health. More than 3/4 of consumers now recognize the link between good gut health and overall health. 3/4 also rank digestive health as one of their top health priorities. And almost 60% of global consumers are aware of the microbiome and have made actual changes to their diet to help support their microbiome health. So they're putting, this interest and familiarity into actual action, which is really interesting. So now that we're all grounded kind of on the state of, probiotics and interest, let's get into a little bit of what we're seeing in the marketplace. So first off, what are the benefits of a biotic? And this can be a probiotic, prebiotic, postbiotic, immune health, gut health, metabolic health, one or two of these. What do you guys think? Yeah, all of the above. And I'm not just saying this, there's been scientific validation of all of these different benefits, and it really comes back to clinical studies. So just looking from 1999 to 2019, and I have a reason for this time frame, when you look at gastroenterology studies, it's really interesting. There's a big shift around this time, and this really is because of our understanding of the microbiome. It used to be that most of these clinical trials concentrated on GI disorders. That includes even like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, things like that. But around 2011, you'll see a big uptick that all of a sudden more than 3/4 were focusing on non-GI conditions. And the reason why is scientists started to realize, hey, there's this big link between our gut microbes living in our gut and immunity, and metabolic health, cognitive health, the gut-brain axis. So they started trying to clinically validate, all these different areas, which leads us now to there being more products than ever on the market with these different benefits. And good products are based in clinical trials, so that's why seeing that validation is so important. And then also, consumers are beginning to understand, hey, there's so many of these benefits to prebiotic fiber, in particular in probiotics and postbiotics. The reason this concentrates on prebiotic fiber is because this was actually a COMET research where we asked customers just 2 months ago, what are benefits you associate with prebiotic fiber? And gut health seems more related to digestive health, like regularity, still top the charts of what people associate with prebiotics, which makes sense. But you'll see some of these emerging areas with metabolism, inflammation, energy, weight loss. These are beginning to trend as well. And then when you look at Intel data on new product launches, it's really interesting. So we looked at supplement launches in particular because they tend to be a little more aggressive with claims and putting things out to market faster to catch up with market trends. So we focused on supplement launches with any biotic ingredient and what claims they're making on pack. And we looked at year-over-year growth. So this was looking at September 2020 to September 2024, what claims grew the most for biotics products. And mood, sleep, and cognition grew over 600% on the number of products coming out that make those claims. Prebiotics increased dramatically, and for any of these claims, this is a front of pack claim. Not something you see on their website, something when you're actually picking up a product, you'll see right there, taking up very valuable space on a package. Diabetics increased, we'll get a little more into that in a minute. Female, so hormones, any kind of claim around that. And then you'll see digestive health, though it's still there. It's not growing near as quickly as these other areas. And this is a trend we think will continue in coming years. So one of the first areas that I want to talk about in terms of microbiome benefits outside the gut is women's health and biotics. And this is an area that gets a lot of traffic on TikTok and Google, which is why we pulled some of the hashtags that we're seeing trending related to gut health and women's health. And then we also just looked in general. There's over 160 paid average views of people searching probiotics in women on Google. So it's an area people are interested in. And then this is how it's kind of translating on TikTok. Gut health and hormone imbalance, it's trending high. And then just gut health and hormonal health. And then interestingly, specifics like prebiotics and a condition called PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, which is a metabolic syndrome impacting women in particular, or only women because of ovaries. That's really trending, and there's been some interesting research there, which is probably part of the reason why. And that group is really active on TikTok, I will say. Probiotics and menopause, another group that's really active. We see Gen X women taking on menopause in a way that previous generations just didn't. They're talking about it much more openly on social media and other forums. They're looking for solutions outside of hormone replacement therapy, and especially in even perimenopause, we see trimming a lot. And one of the things they're thinking about is, how is my microbiome affecting this? Not only my gut microbiome, but also my urinary tract microbiome or my vaginal microbiome. What shifts happen as we age in those microbiomes, and how does what we eat make a difference? So one of the things I think that's interesting about biotics in women is that we see biotics trending more with women just in general, and I think a big reason why is 75% of women say they experience some type of GI distress, whether bloating, constipation, diarrhea, any IBS symptom, a few times a month, compared to 57% of men. And this probably, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, there's probably some hormones in play there, why women are more likely to experience some of these issues. And brands have caught on to this and are formulating biotic products specifically for women. Align has one that's a pre and probiotic, and they looked at probiotic strains that have been shown to have positive benefits for vaginal health for this product. Renew Biotic, they have cranberry in here as well, which the phenolic compounds in cranberry have been studied and are known for good for the urinary tract. But they went a step further and added some pre and probiotics that also have been shown to have benefits for women. And then this one I find really interesting because they're going really far in their claims. They're even talking about how pre and probiotics for women can affect skin health. Your skin has a microbiome. You don't only have a microbiome in your gut. We also have microbiomes of bacteria on our skin. We have a lung microbiome. It's surprising to think about it. You're breathing in constantly. You're breathing in some microbes, so there is a microbiome balance in your lungs. And then for women in particular, there's a vaginal microbiome as well. So another area we see trending is biotics and weight management. One thing I would say about metabolism in general, love it or hate it, GLP-1 drugs and their popularity have shown a big light on that metabolism and food noise and all those things. Sometimes they're innate to a human, right? Just because someone's doing the exact same thing as someone else doesn't mean they're going to have the same metabolism and weight management that person has. There's a lot more innate things going on that are characteristic for an individual. And I think that's a really interesting thing and something that scientists need to think about more. Because what's healthy for one person, a size might not be healthy for another. But one thing we are figuring out is that maybe part of the reason why some people tend to carry more weight in certain areas of their body or have a harder time with weight management might be because of their innate metabolism. And our microbes in our gut actually can help with anaerobic metabolism of different nutrients. There's a I'm going to give a layman way to put this. There's a way that it heats up your body, like metabolism has to do with how hot your body is, and the microbes can play a role in that and kind of help digest things more quickly, and can definitely have some benefits for how you digest food and how your body retains certain nutrients. And so Google-related searches related to gut health and weight loss are trending almost 350% quarter over quarter. People are searching it online. And then on TikTok in particular, not surprising, gut health and weight loss is also increasing rapidly, even just week over week. These conversations are happening. People are trying to think about how can my gut microbiome be playing a role. So it's interesting for prebiotics in particular. A lot of brands have latched onto this idea of there's an opportunity with GLP-1 in these drugs in particular and the microbiome. And the reason why is when you eat certain prebiotic soluble fibers, when they ferment, they release short-chain fatty acids, including propionate, acetate, and probably the one most people are familiar with, butyrate. And these short-chain fatty acids actually help trigger GLP-1 naturally. And GLP-1 is a hormone your body naturally makes. I will say no food, no supplement, no ingredient is ever going to trigger GLP-1 to the extent that a drug will. But, brands have caught on to this, hey, our product can naturally trigger GLP-1. We should be talking about this with customers, right? So it's a really interesting area. There's a lot more research that needs to be done before people are making really aggressive claims about what their product is boosting GLP-1, in my opinion. We don't want anyone to ever think that a food they're going to take or supplement they're going to take is going to mimic the effects of a drug. With that being said, GLP-1 has put weight loss, this hormone, really at the center of people's minds. And weight management is still a top physical concern for consumers globally. And GLP-1 may reach 30 million people in the US by 2030, which is around 9% of the population. So huge number of people could be on these medications. When people are told, so I talk to practitioners, I'm a registered dietitian, I was just at FNC, a big registered dietitian conference, and the practitioners there that actually see patients told me, people want to stay on these medications, but there's a couple things preventing them. One is the nausea and other side effects. GLP-1 can slow down your digestive tract and how quickly you digest food, which can lead to constipation. And sometimes when people have constipation, they go through a cycle of constipation and diarrhea. And then just in general, a lot of people with GLP-1 just are nauseous. They're more full than they ever have been, and food can kind of just make them queasy. So, and the other big issue is muscle wasting. When people take GLP-1, they're starving their body of energy. And when you starve your body of energy, calories, you're going to lose muscle, unless you're supplementing with lots of protein. That's really the only way to combat muscle wasting in GLP-1. Like there was a hashtag a couple years ago that was really popular called like Ozempic face, where people were taking these GLP-1s and they literally were like sunken in places because the way their muscles were just wasting wasn't very attractive. So practitioners now, when someone goes on GLP-1, tells them, hey, you should really be thinking about protein and fiber, getting nutrient-dense foods when you can eat, and try, you're not eating as much or a big of a quantity of food, so when you are eating, you really need to think about nutrient-dense options. So tapping into the GLP-1 opportunity, there's 3 ways we really are seeing brands do this. One is offering a GLP-1 alternative. This is the one I would say, if you should be doing this as a brand, just because, like I mentioned earlier, nothing is ever going to mimic a drug like that we're taking as a food or supplement. But you can talk about how your product naturally increases GLP-1. It can boost satiety and satisfaction. It can help reduce appetite and help people cut down on caloric intake in a more natural way. And we've seen a really big increase in diabetes-related claims in products with pre, pro, and postbiotics in the last couple of years. And I think this all goes back to, again, people better understanding that we have all these hormones in our body that are actually being influenced by not only the actual fiber, protein, calories that we're eating, but also the microbes in our gut are affecting our hormones and metabolism. The opportunity that I see probably is most fruitful for brands is a GLP-1 companion product. Nestle just came out with a really interesting product that combined protein and fiber. It was a nutrition shake that they're saying, hey, you're on Ozempic or another GLP-1, you're going to have these symptoms. Here's a product specifically for you. And they did that without having to do, too large of a renovation of one of their current products. They already had some high protein drinks. They just kind of retargeted the messaging. I will say with this, it's difficult with some things that are high nutrients because they can actually exacerbate symptoms for people that are already having maybe some, not great GI symptoms. So it's important to look for a low FODMAP prebiotic fiber, one that has clinical studies to show that it's not going to agitate people's gut even more. Because the worst thing you want to do for someone already having nausea is give them something that's going to get them running to the bathroom in 5 minutes. And then lastly, GLP-1 maintenance. So people, when they're coming off these medications, they just paid maybe a lot of money to be on them. They're very motivated to keep this weight off. And they probably are willing to spend some money to do so. So more products are coming to the market to help people that are positioned as coming off this drug. Almost 2/3 of the people that take GLP-1 medications regain the weight. Maybe we can help you with some of the satiety by taking this medication. So you can be more successful in keeping off that weight that you spent money and worked so hard on to do. And here's a couple examples of just some product launches that are doing these. Linny, they have a GLP-1 in the name. I looked at products that have GLP-1 in the name on Intel. They say that they not only support GLP-1 hormone, it can help reduce hunger, promote healthy insulin function, and support healthy weight management. And they have 3 clinically tested ingredients that they say support those 3 claims. Supergut has a number of products. They have a shake. Their sales have just exploded. They're Target now. In 2023 to 2024, their product sales tripled, and they actually just got in at Walmart. So they're probably going to get even higher in the next couple of years. And not this product, but other of their products do have GLP-1 actually in the name. And then Previe, this is a resbiotic product. They say that their product also helps naturally boost GLP-1. And they have a prebiotic fiber in there, which is how they're making that claim. Same for Supergut. They have a prebiotic blend of soluble fibers that have been shown to naturally trigger GLP-1. So another area that maybe people don't realize is so affected by the gut microbiome is our immune system. 70% of our immune system actually resides in our gut. Not, people think about other areas of the body, but it's really the gut where most of our anti-pathogen, all of our antibodies and everything are living and helping fight, bad bacteria that's coming in. And it's one of the reasons why having a good balance of good bacteria in your gut versus bad is so important, because it's really where our immune function starts over cold and flu season in particular. We're seeing a lot more products for kids starting school, back to school season, that really talk about, your kids starting school, they're going to have a probiotic for them to help manage maybe some of the colds. And the products that are coming out to the market that do this best are ones that have actually done clinical studies where they give their supplement to a cohort and watch the entire cold and flu season. And they give the placebo to another cohort, watch them over the whole cold and flu season, and then have a clinical study where they actually show, hey, the cohort that was given our probiotic had a 20% decrease in colds. Really compelling when you see that, and it all comes back to how our immunity, and especially some certain probiotic strains, can be so beneficial in helping us balance more of that good bacteria to help counterbalance some of that bad bacteria in our gut. And this is trending on TikTok. And looking at product launches, there's been a 134 increase on immunity claims in biotic products over the last year. And here's some examples. Align, they have a gut and immune health product. We're also seeing this in food and beverage products as well. Nature's Garden is a probiotic immune snacks. They have some prebiotics in there. That's how they're making that claim as well as probiotics. And then there's like some shots that have pre and probiotics as well. And vitamin C, which is also associated with immunity as well. Another area that's really growing in research is cognitive health. When you think about satiety hormones, the way that GLP-1 actually works is cognition, right? Like you're eating something, it triggers GLP-1 hormone. The GLP-1 hormone then tells your brain, hey, we're full, we don't need to eat anymore. So there's a gut-brain axis just naturally with digestion. Sometimes I talk about cognitive health and biotics, and people are like, no way. Like there's no way like eating a fiber is going to affect my brain health. But every day what you're eating is affecting your cognition by having that satiety response. So I don't think it's too crazy to say that by supplementing with certain biotics that are proven, there is a gut health response. And even things like anxiety, we're seeing trending, consumers are looking for products, and then mood. There's certain probiotic strains that, believe it or not, are associated with being happier. And then also anxiety. And there's different mechanisms of actions for these. Serotonin is a big one. And then just some other neurotransmitters and things that we know when your gut is in good balance, you're going to be triggering more of. There also is a growing amount of research, and this gets more in the therapeutic category of autism and other more things on the spectrum that people are also starting to figure out, was there something in early infancy or someone's early life that could have played a role? I mean, scientists are still very much on it's mostly genetic, a lot of these things, but, maybe there is something to the gut that could help trigger it or not trigger it for people when it comes to certain cognitive health conditions. Same for Parkinson's and some other different cognitive health conditions. And we've seen a 585% increase in biotics carrying sleep or stress claims in particular, which I think is really interesting. And like a lot of the studies for stress in particular, I think talk about sleep. I think they just monitor people. They give them the pro or pre or postbiotic and watch their sleep if they sleep better or not compared to a placebo group. The stress ones, they can actually go in and look at people's cortisol levels and different stress levels and see after they take a biotic, did those change? Here's a couple of different products. This big brain probiotic talks about healthy mood, brain function, and memory. And they say that the mechanism of action for this is that by having probiotics, it helps deliver energies to your brain cells and help your brain work more efficiently. Seed, which I don't think I've ever seen Seed, they're probably one of the largest symbiotic products on the market. They just came out with a new product called Energy Focus with pre and postbiotics. And it's kind of the same mechanism of action as the Love Wellness. They just say that, it helps optimize how nutrients are getting delivered to our brain so we work more quickly. And I mentioned earlier, energy is really growing in consumer interest. So these brands are definitely looking at that data as well. And then this product's for children. HMOs are called human milk oligosaccharides. Breast milk naturally has human milk oligosaccharides. People talk about why is breast milk so great for kids. People talk about probiotics more, like, oh, they have natural good probiotics for mom. They actually have natural good prebiotics for mom too, called human milk oligosaccharides. And the industry has been able to create synthetic human milk oligosaccharides or through fermentation and able to supplement it for kids in powders, formula. Most formulas have HMOs now as well. Okay, so the prebiotic category in particular has gone through a really big shifts in the last couple of years. I started COMET about 6 years ago, and we were focused on prebiotics and clinical studies on that area then. Generally, when I told people I work for a prebiotic company, they're like, oh yeah, probiotics, I eat yogurt. And I'm like, yeah, no, prebiotics, it's a little different. That's shifted a lot. And I think a lot of the reason why is because of brands like Poppy and Olipop. Poppy had a Super Bowl commercial. So prebiotics are pretty mainstream now. PepsiCo has got Poppy. I think we're not going to see any slowdown in these functional prebiotic products. But building on the momentum of these functional beverages, we're seeing a lot more products coming out that talk about gut-friendly fibers, diversity of fibers, a lot more unpacked than they ever have. So TikTok. Prebiotics are trending. They're very, very trending on TikTok. You'll see gut health, holistic wellness, all these good things. But with that comes scrutiny. Poppy in particular, last summer, or I guess summer 2024, so summer ago, was hit with a big lawsuit of people saying, hey, you're only including 2.5 grams of prebiotic fiber in this product. Are people actually getting a gut health benefit at that amount? And a lot of scientists came out and had different opinions on it. I won't get too much into it now, but it really was unfortunate, I think, for the whole prebiotic category that this one brand and their formulation made people question prebiotics in general, when so many brands are basing all of their claims on good clinical studies that have been validated in randomized placebo clinical trial controls. More to come on this, but I will say it didn't stop Poppy by getting acquired for a very large amount from PepsiCo. So, yeah, even with the scrutiny, it's still a very growing category. So, when it comes to prebiotics in particular, there's two issues. And I'd say these issues are also true for the supplement industry just in general. And as formulators, we all need to be thinking about this at IFT. One of the issues can be fairy dusting. And this is a term when someone adds a dose of an ingredient to a product at a very low amount. Or not a very low amount, but just at an amount that maybe clinical studies show that when people took 5 grams a day, they had benefit. Okay, well, we're adding it at 2 grams a day, but we're still saying it's a gut health product. Should they be doing that? I don't know. We don't have supplement regulation in the U.S. like there is in other areas of the world. So, fairy dusting can only add a little bit. There's some questionable claims. I think the biggest issue for the prebiotic industry in this is decreased consumer trust. Anytime someone takes a prebiotic and they don't have a benefit, that hurts everyone, because then they might believe that all prebiotics don't have a benefit, or probiotics for any supplement. Another issue is actually overdosing, which is the opposite. Some products we know degrade when they are in retorts, pasteurization, different manufacturing conditions, particularly some prebiotic fibers. So in order to counteract that, companies will put in way more of that product at the beginning. And you know, to me, this is wasteful, number one. And then two, it can cause GI distress. If what's said is on the label isn't actually, when people go to test it, the amount that's in that product, because they felt like they had to overdose to make sure they survived. So when you're looking at prebiotic ingredients, we did a search on Intel to see which prebiotics, all of these are prebiotics, are growing over the last year in products. So new product launches, what are people looking towards? And you'll see here that the more novel and new prebiotics are growing at a much faster rate. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is many of these are gentler on the stomach than some of the main. Inulin is still, there's still a lot of products coming out with inulin. This is not to say that in-resistant starch and these other ones. But some of these, you know, at one serving, great, no one's gonna have a GI issue. But when you're thinking about formulating an ice cream candy bar, you know, you want to think about an ingredient that if your customer is going to eat more than one serving, they're not going to be running to the bathroom. So we see that as a big reason why some of these newer prebiotics that have better tolerability are increasing so much in the marketplace. Also, some of these just have more claims at a lower dose. Their mechanism of action is a little different, so their dose can be very low. Sauce, for example, has claims that under a 1 gram dose. Sauce can have claims at a 500 milligram dose. And some of the more commodity prebiotic fibers, you know, it's more like 5 grams to get a claim. So in terms of formulation, there's definitely some benefits to some of the new advanced fibers. And then when you think about cost of use, if you're using way less, even if they're more expensive, it can equal out a little bit. One area I think is really interesting that everyone should be watching when it comes to prebiotics is phenolic compounds or polyphenols, as they're known more commonly. Polyphenols is a group of phenolic compounds, but phenolic compounds are extremely diverse. Anyone who's taken food science knows there's a lot of different ones, so I think that using the word polyphenols can be kind of disingenuous. I like to say more phenolic compounds and talk about specific ones when it comes to the microbiome in particular, because they all are so different. But yeah, there's a big trend towards phenolic compounds. They're emerging as a new class of prebiotics. They have benefits. It's been seen at really low doses of even 400 milligrams, which is quite low. And we see a lot more future of this in particular growing. And many of them are right now actually partnering with some probiotics, like this bio product. Yeah, we definitely see phenolic compounds trending, and we're seeing new product launches where, especially capsules, where you have to keep serving size so low. We're seeing a lot of capsules using phenolics to get that prebiotic thing. Like Seed, for example, they're a big brand. They have a symbiotic product, and they say the prebiotic in their product is this outer shell, which uses a pomegranate extract that has phenolic compounds. So this is some data that COMET, we just got back a month ago, and it looked at, okay, so prebiotics in particular, how do people want to take them? Do they want to take a capsule every day? No. I can tell you right now, no. And it's not even down. We turned to this question, so in 2019, 47% said, oh yeah, I'd like a filler capsule. In 2025, only 30% said they really want to take it that way. This is really interesting for me, and I think a great opportunity for anyone in the food industry. People don't want to change their daily habits that much to have good benefits. You know, they'd much rather be able to eat a bar or a baked good that they were already taking every day and just swapping it for something with maybe a prebiotic boost than having to remember every morning to take their extra capsule or an extra supplement. Coffee is one that we did not ask, but we should have, because we find coffee is really growing. It's a daily ritual a lot of people have, and it's a really great way to take a supplement because people might forget other things during the day. A lot of people forget their coffee. So if you can add a supplement to their coffee, they're going to be happy. Cereal, you know, it's not that surprising. Historically, fiber, cereal kind of go together. Gummies has gone down a bit. I think gummies really hit their peak a couple years ago. They were gummy supplement everything. I think it's going to go down a little bit in the coming years, but yeah. taking something in a food. And here's some new products coming out just to demonstrate this with some more food and bev formats, and then also with some of these newer generation prebiotics. So acacia fiber, we're seeing in some beverages, tapioca fiber, we're seeing in some bars, chocolates, and then just some yummy snacks too. So postbiotics. I know I talked about this a little bit earlier, but what is a postbiotic? Which of these definitions do you guys think is the actual definition of it? Let's see. So I'll get into a little bit of the parts of this definition, but a postbiotic, I think the easiest way to think about it is post in Latin means after, bio in Latin means life, so it's afterlife. That's how I remember it. So a probiotic, it's promoting life, it's good. A postbiotic is actually the preparation of an inactivated microorganism that confers a health benefit. So an inactive microbe, essentially. They take an existing microbe, lactobacillus is a common one, they heat treat it, or they use radiation in a couple different ways, they kill it. But when they give it to someone, even though it's technically inactive, it still has health benefits. And that's how this whole category really came apart, is when people were doing testing where they were heat treating existing probiotics and microbes and then giving them to people and realizing like, hey, they're still having some health benefits. This is really interesting. Common areas you might have seen a postbiotic product are yeast and animal feeds. A lot of formulas have heat-treated probiotics, which makes sense because they have to be heat-treated since they're used for the sensitive population of babies. So there are existing products out there, and a lot of postbiotics have extremely low dose. So they're a lot easier to put into a capsule than, say, a prebiotic has a 5-gram dose. So consumers are wondering what postbiotics are. I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. This is just looking at Google Analytics. You'll see even over the last year, there's been a big spike on what is a postbiotic. And for anyone who are interested in learning more postbiotics, the place to go is ISAP, the International Scientific Association of Pro and Prebiotics. This is not a trade group, so they're completely unbiased. It's a group of scientists in the microbiome field that independently look at research and come up with definitions for things like postbiotics or prebiotics. They have really good videos on YouTube. They have great podcasts and just great resources on their website in general. It's isapscience.com. I'm actually not allowed to be a member because I'm in the industry. They're very strict, but I do attend their conference and they have like an industry section where we're allowed to come and learn, but no one is allowed to give any type of actual commentary for anything they do if they work in the industry. So some postbiotic products coming out on the market, Slice, they have a new soda. They were trying to differentiate versus the Poppy, Olipop, all the existing ones on the market. So they have a pre, pro, and postbiotic in their product. Only a supplement brand is also coming out with this trifecta. Great. So if anyone has any questions or anything they would like to learn more about or comment? Anything? Yeah?
Thank you, Hannah. We had you as a speaker 2 years ago, and you gave a phenomenal speech at one of our Chicago section events. Thank you very much. This was very enlightening, and also seeing the difference in GLP-1 uses over the past 2 years, it's insanely increasing.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is, how do you see this in the other parts of the world? And wouldn't it be easier just to follow a really balanced diet full of vegetables, fibers, balanced diet with exercise program? Why do you think people, like over 9% of our population is taking these drugs, actually harming themselves also with their liver and other gut microbiome? How do you see this changing? Is it going to increase, or do you see it will reach a certain level?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest threat to like GLP-1, or maybe you don't like them, not a threat, is the cost is really high in our healthcare system. figures out a way to subsidize the cost, a lot of people are going to be on it. And I think the reason why is weight management is hard. You know, it's not something that everyone can do or be able to do easily. And part of it might come actually back to addiction, like food noise. A lot of people that are successful on Ozempic and never GLP-1 medications say for the first time in their life they weren't thinking about food 24/7. And to me, that's something more actually to do with the addictive qualities of food rather than you know, just trying to be good, have a good philosophy on what you eat and how you exercise. So I think GLP-1 medications have shown a light for that. And actually, GLP-1 medications have been used for other addictions too. In studies like in gambling addiction, they've shown that GLP-1 use can actually help people, shopping addiction, and different things. So I think there's something going on in just our food system in general. You know, it's as much as I would love to tell everyone go out and eat 10 fruits and vegetables a day, get all your fiber. Life doesn't always work out that way. With young kids too, like they're not going to want to eat like a head of broccoli. So I think that's where making the foods we are eat healthier is such a good opportunity for us as a food industry to try to supplement with, you know, fiber, most people aren't eating enough. And then maybe, you know, if someone can breastfeed a formula that has these natural HMOs and probiotics for their baby. So I definitely think there's a role. But yeah, for GLP-1 usage, I don't know. It'll be really interesting. I think a lot of it's going to have to do with the cost. If we're actually going to reach that 9% in the next 4 years. Sure. Okay. Well, if you have any other questions, feel free to stop by our booth later. 10:25. We're going to have chocolate samples for Biotics. Really yummy. So yeah, you should definitely stop by and grab a couple. Yeah. Thanks everyone for